Welcome back to the Press Club. Thank you very much for joining us for the program. Those of you who have invited us into your homes, into whatever part of your home that you have invited us to listen to this program, we really do appreciate it. And as we do every week when you join us for this program, a review, a recap, an analysis, and even critique of the news developments in the past week, providing just a little splash of our opinion, more than just a little splash, Maria. Of our opinion.
So.
Yeah. That's what they say. You're quite opinionated, so it's difficult to keep Maria under wraps. We'll try to during the course of this program over the next 55 minutes or so. Again, thank you for joining us. Maria, let's go to your story. Of course, I mean, so much happening the last week. Unions and posturing and breaking ties and apologies and just different positions being taken.
But amazingly, the CSA president, Mary Isaac, has said that despite everything, she said that she's still receiving a lot of support from the other unions, including unions in the region. So I'm not sure. There hasn't actually been a public outpouring of that support. But she seems to feel, she said that she's been receiving phone calls from unions in Dominica, etc. Grenada. She's been also receiving phone calls from members of the teachers and the police, as well as the nurses unions as well. But they have officially broken off by accepting government's offer. She also mentioned that they could do so because the extras that they would get, the bonuses that they would get in terms of the risk, etc., that would essentially give them a 6%. And the CSE members, the rest of the civil service, they themselves will not be getting that 6%. It will be 4% for them.
Right.
But based on the extras that police are getting, the nurses are getting, teachers are getting materials allowance as well.
Yeah, 600
right.
for the year.
500, I think, yeah. And
well, they bumped it up to 600,
okay.
at the last report.
Yeah, so she said, well, they would basically, they get the 6% basically based on those extras, but the rest of the service is not getting anything extra. So it's not to the benefit for them to go ahead with the agreement, and they have decided to strike. They held a meeting on Friday, which took quite a while. I think the decision came in almost 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock.
About midday, about midday, just after midday.
But interestingly, on the air, persons like the former president, Joseph Dossary, was publicly expressing his disappointment that they had taken that route.
Well, you see, for me, we look at Mary Isaac because she is the head of the CSA, but it really is not her decision. Now, although we have not seen or heard of an outpouring of support in the public for her and her decision to strike as of Monday, obviously she has the support because when they went into the meeting on Friday, it was to get a mandate from the membership as to how do we proceed. And that mandate was to cut off the talk and strike until the employer comes back and gives something that is reasonable. For the most part, I think a lot of this has to do with hurt feelings. It's more emotion.
On the part of?
Or the public servants. I think that it was very inappropriate for the Prime Minister to speak when he did. Some people don't agree with that and say he's the Prime Minister, so he has the leeway to speak. But when a negotiation is ongoing and you have designated or a team or delegated a team to represent you, it is not prudent, it is not wise, it is not advisable for you to come out and make statements that some people might perceive as inflammatory, especially when the negotiations are so tough and when you know the sides have not reached a common ground, when there is still a significant divide between the two sides. You know, I would think that it would serve as a learning opportunity for the Prime Minister and whatever administration is in place, you know, in the future, that you know, when these negotiations are going on, you let them go through the process. You allow them to run through. And if there is something that you want to say about the process or the result, then you can say that after, but not in the middle of the negotiation. So I disagreed with the speech. Not as much with the speech, but as I do with the content of the speech. You know, talking directly to issues that are being negotiated.
But again, it was felt that they kind of forced his hand based on the amount of airplay it was getting. It was getting, you know, whether it be in the mainstream media, on social media, in the streets. There was a lot of talk about that. So it was felt that the Prime Minister's hand was kind of forced. Even on Friday, Mary Isaac stated that she's waiting for the employer to address them, not the negotiating team, not the minister, the employer, basically meaning government of St. Lucia headed by Kenny Anthony, Dr. Kenny Anthony. So there seemed to be a suggestion that they want that kind of communication from the top, not with the negotiating team. Again, that is after everything has happened.
Right.
But he seems to have felt that his hand was forced to make statements based on the fact that both, apart from the civil servants, the opposition themselves were really heavy-handed in criticizing the government.
Yeah, well, I mean, at this point, we can assume that negotiations have broken off because they have decided that they're going to strike. And you can't strike in the middle of a negotiation. So we can assume from that posture that negotiations between the GNT and the CSA at least have broken off. There's no TUF in this because the police have signed.
Yes.
The teachers have indicated that they will sign. The fire service, also the correctional officers and nurses as well, I heard, are going to sign. So there is no federation that will go in to represent all the public service agencies.
Just the CSA.
It's just the CSA that is holding out. And their decision to ask for 9.5, you know, it's very baffling to me because I can't understand how the other unions have accepted 4%.
Yes.
And they have indicated, the police were on Newsmaker Live this week, and they indicated that there was no evidence presented to support, you know, the fact that government, or the idea, not the fact, the idea that the government could pay more than 4%. And all the evidence that they were able to amass would indicate to the contrary, that government cannot even afford the 4%, and that if they go to tribunal or arbitration, that they would lose more than they will likely gain by accepting the deal. So
that was
it is very
strong point
baffling.
Mr. James. That was a very strong point. I'm saying if you claim, the CSA is claiming that its membership is throughout the public service, so much so that they have actually, one of their conditions was that there be an automatic deduction from individual salaries towards payment of the CSA dues, the union dues.
Which is crazy, actually.
Well, there you go, but they believe that their members are throughout the public service. If that is the case, then you should have information to state exactly where government is spending too much money, unnecessary money, which positions are unnecessary, why these positions are unnecessary, how much money these individuals are being paid, and when you cut their salary, how does it benefit, how does it go towards the increase in the other public servant salary? So I may say Clinton is getting $5,000 a month. If you cut him, then that's the increase for 2 public servants. But there actually has not been anything forthcoming, and you are also asking for the public support, because don't forget the public may eventually be asked to fork out additional taxes just to pay for this.
Maybe. I mean, of course, it will come back to us. But here's what it is,
but they have not, as you said, if somebody within the police are saying that you have not given us a compelling argument, and the police have been sitting in talks with them that we have not been privy to, what does that say about your argument?
Here's the point, Maria. I don't think any union is in a position or should be in a position to say, okay, well, this person is making that much, that person is making that much, therefore you can pay it, or you should cut them. I mean, the government, the administration has government to administer. Okay, it has to govern, and there are certain policy decisions which will require employment of certain individuals to fulfill certain policies.
Yes.
So I think the unions are out of place, and I think that a lot of the times, you know, they overstep that boundary.
Place.
Yeah, they are out of place to say, okay, this person is getting that, you're paying this person for this, you're paying. No, if the government feels that this is necessary to advance its policy, that is why the electorate voted for them.
No, but even,
so that
even
a certain policy,
if you're going to be out of place, be out of place. Actually bring me the information. Show me that you are on top of your job. Because if you claim you're so productive in your position, you're so productive, then you should have your finger it should be at your fingertips. You should have your finger on the pulse of government to know who's doing what and whether or not, in your opinion, of course, in your opinion, it's necessary, their position is necessary, etc.
But notwithstanding my view on that, you know, the unions are out of place to demand that.
Yeah.
I believe, you know, from a public standpoint, that we can ask for accountability. The union members, yes, the union members as members of the public, and as taxpayers can demand accountability, but not in the context of a negotiation. They can say that, okay, we elected you there, you know, you're calling St. Lucians to be more prudent and frugal with the spending, right? You call for belt tightening, you call for cutting back. But you are not showing that kind of example. You're not leading by example. And from that standpoint, I would agree. But not in the context of a union negotiation where you're saying, okay, I deserve a higher raise in essence because you're paying these people so much.
No, not because. I deserve a higher salary because I need it, which is what they're basically saying. We need it.
And you can pay it because you're paying this.
Yeah, you can pay it because this is where you can cut the fat out of the public service. But then even in saying that, they're not giving, they actually aren't giving.
Right, they're not providing any evidence as to.
Because I am standing on the outside, as you said, we did accountability. At least call a government to provide government themselves have not been actually given many details as well. They mentioned the consultants from the United Workers' Party who were hired. The UWP
and they hired 40 or 40 something. But that is where
so
we
again,
come
there's
in.
not been details. There haven't been details on either side.
I think the government should lead by example. I think the Prime Minister, there is a lot of, you know, as I said before, a lot of posturing, a lot of, you know, puffing of the chest and raising their head to say, okay, well, you know, this is my card, play yours. You know, we're not. It's not a game. It's the economy. We all suffer. There are 180,000 people, 170 to 180,000 people living on this island, right? Only 9,500 are public servants. The other 160 to 170,000 are ordinary citizens. Who pay taxes? Well, the youth don't pay. But then, you know, these are people.
Pays taxes, I think.
No, I'm saying there are others who pay. The large majority of the residents are not civil servants. That's the point I'm making. And these people pay taxes as well. So, I mean, there needs to be, I think, humility in all of this. There needs to be less arrogance in all of it on both sides, and say, okay, this is the economic situation that we're facing. We're going to discuss the IMF report, or probably we can bring it in here. The IMF presented a report for the period 2012, which ends at the end of March, for the financial year, April 2012 to March 2013. And the picture was not very bright. Okay, and part of what the IMF is recommending is that the government cuts back or it curtails its spending, especially in wages and subsidies. So we're talking about a recommendation from the IMF. Already, our debt is at 78%. You know, our debt, one part of our debt is 78%. I can't remember exactly what debt it is, but there's 12% of our overall debt. There's a 12% to GDP of our overall debt. So if the IMF is recommending that these changes be made, and there is no real vision that there is a bright light at the end of the tunnel, that this economic challenge that we're facing right now will continue, and we're going to continue to suffer and be squeezed. I mean, there needs to be a curtailing of spending on both sides, and there needs to be an understanding on the part of public servants and also on the government that, one, the government needs to lead by example, and two, the public servants need to understand that we might force our government or ourselves into a position where we end up like Dominica, where Dominica, the workers there say, you know what, give us our money, and then the next thing you know, they were to the IMF because the amount that they demanded, and they put pressure on the administration to get, at the end of the day, when they got it,
they actually gave it to them.
The end result was that Dominica had to bow to the IMF, and other measures had to be taken to ensure that the economy stayed alive.
Do you know, Ms. Isaac actually said that we cannot compare ourselves to other islands. That's comparing apples to oranges, because the situation is different to ours. St. Lucia is a leading economy in the region. And
that's what you said. That's your
Ms.
argument?
Isaac said that. We cannot compare ourselves to these other islands.
But how long?
Antigua, they mentioned Antigua.
But how long
Antigua
will
right now,
lead?
teachers have not been paid.
Look at Jamaica.
Is it Antigua teachers have not been paid for February? Jamaica, there's been a wage freeze.
Jamaica, there's a wage freeze. You know, all the unions accept a wage freeze because the IMF is in there. You have to compare it because we reside in the same space. our economies suffer the same shocks.
Yeah.
You know, we are not major producers of anything. Well, we do not produce anything for export.
That
So-
was the question I was asking the public servants. If you are making such a big deal, what are you producing
Right.
that is making the country
Yeah.
move forward? What are you
So
contributing to the GDP that you feel that you are owed?
Right.
Right, that's 16%. Of course, now it's 9.5%. But you feel you owe it. What are you producing? But she came forward and said they are the ones who cause government and the country to run. Further, their salaries actually are precursor to the salaries of everybody else in the country. In that, if they do not get their increase, it means that the rest
The
of the
private
country,
sector.
the private sector, cannot claim an increase. You and I tomorrow cannot tell our employers we deserve an increase because, of course, the public servants didn't get. So your employer will tell you, well, if the public servants didn't get, you don't deserve it as well. However, some of the other unions have said that they have already secured for it from the private sector. In some areas,
Right,
they have
yes.
secured
Increases.
for their
And some of them
members,
significant as
up
well.
to 9%. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, it
But she
it's
seems to think that if the public servants do not get an increase, then it's bad for the entire country
Right,
because
it
then
will trickle
nobody
down.
else can claim an increase if the public servants don't get an increase. And when they get an increase and then they spend that money, that in itself is helping the economy.
we need to look at the numbers seriously, and I'm not supporting one side or the other, but we need to look at this thing realistically and say, okay, can we afford an increase of even 4%? Can we afford that? You know, the increases to public servants has been 29.5% in the last 12 years.
Yeah.
29.5%. You know,
That nice
in-
hunk of
in-
14%.
yeah, in
few years ago.
1997, when the first wage negotiation was 0.001, 1% over the triennium. After that, there was a 10%. So count with me, that's 11%. Okay, when the UWP came in, 14.5%. Okay, so we got to 25.5%, and this time 4% for the triennium 2007-2010. 29.5%. Which other sector has
That
expanded
extent.
by 29.5%
Yeah.
to deserve that sort of wage increase?
In excess
So-
of 29.5% if they get what they're asking.
Yeah, so we have to be realistic. We have to look at all the facts before us. We have to consider the facts. We have to consider the numbers.
But what are the facts before us?
That
That's the other thing
that
again,
the
because as we
economy,
mentioned,
the
they
economy
aren't-
is bad. Let's just go to the IMF report, and let's
Stated
let's take a break first. And when we come back, we'll continue. We'll continue our discussion on this union situation, the impasse between the CSA right now and the government, because they are the only ones who have decided that they'll go on strike as of Monday. So we'll discuss that and a lot more coming up on the Press Club. Stay with us.